All right. Welcome to another episode of the Centre Circle podcast, episode number 101. Got myself, Keith, hosting today, and I'm here with Isaac and Adrian. How you doing, boys?
Fantastic.
I'm well, man. I'm well. Can't complain.
Good stuff. So, yeah, as per usual, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the Premiership results that have happened over the weekend. We might look back on the Champions League that happened midweek as well, have a little recap on that. But yeah, Liverpool are a step closer to winning the league. The race for the Champions League spot is hotting up, and another team has been confirmed as relegated back to the Championship. So let's get into it. Start off with Aston Villa against Newcastle, another pivotal game for the race for Champions League. And Aston Villa went out 4-1 winners, and I'm going to say I was a little bit surprised at this result. So before I get the opinions of Isaac and Ben, to tell you the scorers. So Ollie Watkins opened the scoring in the first minute, and then Fabian Schär, who's on a good goal scoring form at the minute, equalises, and then Ian Maatsen, Dan Burnham goal, and Andre Onana wrap up the victory for Aston Villa. So yeah, as I said, I was a bit surprised at this. Isaac, what was your take on this game?
I wasn't surprised at all, to be honest. It was going to go either way. I don't think this is a game where we was going to see a ball draw or a score draw even. I genuinely think Aston Villa have the better team, the better manager. And also we know what's been going on with Ollie Watkins and how he's felt about being dropped out of the starting lineup. So you put all of that together, I was expecting the Villa win. Maybe not this emphatic, but I'm not surprised at the same time. But so yeah, you put all of that stuff together, and here we are. You know, this is what happened. Ollie Watkins looked dangerous up top, and obviously that's born out of frustration. So he was going to be very sharp, and the middle of the park, which is pretty much where this game was won. I think Yuri Tielemans he came in and done exactly what they brought him to do, which was pull strings, be their player, their quarterback, so to speak, their playmaker. And I've always been a big fan of his since Leicester days, and I'm happy to see that he's now doing that. He's now the focal point in the midfield for Aston Villa.
Yeah, no, you had a really good game. And Adrian, you've been very vocal about Watkins' omission over the last few games for Aston Villa, citing that he's a seasoned Premiership striker, full international, and you feel he's been a little bit mistreated by Unai. So getting the start on Saturday, bit of vindication?
No, definitely. I think he showed his value, showed his worth. You know, you look at his league form over the last 4 seasons, he's been double figures. 23, 15 goals, 23, 24, 19. And then this season, he's currently on 15 goals for Aston Villa. So he's a guy he's one of those strikers that earns the right to play out or play through a bad form. And you got to let him play. And I think we kind of do a bit of discredit.
Who said it's bad form?
No, I said he's earned the right to play through bad form. So if he has a bad form or he's going through a bit of a dry spell, he's earned the right to be continually picked to play. And, you know, like Harry Kane gets that.
He wasn't dropped because of bad form. He was dropped because of injuries.
Who was injured?
He was.
But I'm just talking about him just in the entirety of the career. That's what I'm saying. So he's one of those players. So he had the right to be upset of not starting in midweek against PSG, the 2 games. And he came on and he showed his worth. He started this game and showed his worth, right? And that's what it's about for me. I think when you look at him as a striker, as an oppositional fan, you know, he's fast, he's strong, he's got a decent touch. Technically, he's good. Movement, he's got decent movement as well. And he showed that in the Euros as well when he came on and scored that vital goal for England. So we know he can score goals. He's a bit on the older side, but we know nowadays that doesn't mean anything for footballers now. They're looking after themselves so well. So yeah, I was really impressed by Ollie and what he done and an assist as well. So yeah,
So,
When you say
Isaac,
older, what do you mean? Because he's not even 30 yet.
I know he's not 30 yet, but usually they're looking at 30 as an older age player. Like they say, they're looking at his exit strategy or the exit plan for him. But I'm saying I could see him going on for a lot longer and doing a lot more in the game.
so I know you've kind of set your points out about he should be able to kind of play through any bad form that he has, and if he's injured, then gets fit again, he should kind of get back in the first team. But as we kind of alluded to outside of this, of the games that he hasn't started, the only game they lost was away to PSG. And you can say, well, that's by the by. Like you're not always expected to go away to PSG
Mm.
and win. So even though he has been in form, him not being picked hasn't been at the detriment to the team because they still produced the victories. So isn't it just like a balancing act where you say, right, even though we've got a top quality striker in Watkins, we've still got as equally good players in Asensio and Rogers and Rashford, etc., just for there to be rotation?
I think for me, it's about what's the best attack and how strong it's going to be. So you can rotate, but I think you can't. He's got to be part of that team. He's got to start. I don't think he's one to be rotated for me. And I think when you look at the players that are around him and their profile, Rashford prefers coming off from the, especially wide left. He prefers wide left, coming in from wide left. You look at Rogers. Rogers is actually technically an eight, so but he's being played on the right sometimes or on the left. But I think Watkins for me has got to be the vocal point of that team because he's earned it.
Isaac, what's your counter to that?
I don't really have a counter. I think, look, if the manager thinks that there's a better option and he goes with it and it works, then so you have to bite that. You can't be sitting there fuming because you fuming, you're putting yourself ahead of the team. If the team's winning and they're performing, like you said, they've only had one loss, which was away to PSG. Understandably, if the team otherwise is performing and winning, you kind of have to bite that. Like, it is what it is. You kind of have to bite that. I know earlier in the season they had a similar issue where John Duran was performing coming off the bench and he was scoring. He was actually putting, I think he scored more than Watkins at one point over like a little period of games.
Mm.
And, he's knocking on the door. There's a dilemma about, who's starting, blah, blah, blah. They've shipped him off. They brought another player in, and now Ollie Watkins is on the other end of that stick where someone else is starting, and you're being told to hold bench, but you're still putting the ball in the back of the net. It happens. It's part and parcel. But it is what it is, and it's not like we're talking about um a striker who's not as good as Watkins. We're talking about someone who's as good, if not better, who's better, or if not as good. So for me, it doesn't sit right in terms of I mean, I get it. I know people will say, look, you want players that want to play, you want players that want to knock on your door and say, but at the same time, look, if it's working, it's working. So
Yeah,
that's my
don't
view on
change
it.
it. And yeah, Newcastle on the back of 5 league games winning run. I think they just come of run into a team just as equally as in form as them. And yeah, Aston Villa, as you like, we've had a discussion about who had the better squad or team out of Newcastle and Villa, and it was quite close when we came out with the teams. I think we said Newcastle had the better midfield, but on
That didn't work.
on
That didn't
Saturday,
show on
on
Saturday.
Saturday, and like you've mentioned
Bro.
Tielemans, Isaac, but I think Kamara's been a bit of an unsung hero. Like he's keeping Onana at the team, and even just kind of Rogers and McGinn, who I know you man are not too fond of, but they get in and do the dirty work with the midfield, and that kind of showed and rung true on Saturday.
Yeah, but look, if you want to go to the next level, I'm sorry, you don't need players that are going to be doing the dirty work. You need players that are going to be able to be playmakers or affect the game in a way where you want it on the front foot. You want ability in those positions. You look at the teams that, let's say the team that knocked them out of the Champions League, on their wings, they don't have players that are doing dirty work. They don't have a John McGinn. They don't have um I'm not going to slight Roger because I think he's a very good player. I like him. I think he's got potential to play for a top team. I think, just put it this way, I think McGinn works for what's happening right now, but I think if they want to go to the next level, I don't know if he's got the ability to step up technically
Do you
and
think they are?
mix it with the best defenders or the best opposition in the world.
Go on, Adrian.
You know, it gives me a bit of a you always have those workmen in your team, or like a lot of successful teams, right? So it gives me a bit of a Henderson vibes. Like, he's not the best, but he's very effective in what he does in terms of breaking up, being busy, and he can play a pass. He's got enough ability to play a good pass and have a good shot to get a goal, right? So I think you always got to kind of, it's a balancing act in all football, and it's about having the right balance. I think the biggest issue for Villa, I don't think it's the midfield. I think you can keep McGinn and continue building around that, and like what Isaac's saying, add better quality. But I think he's quite a vital piece of that jigsaw to move forward. I think the biggest issue for them right now is getting the defence right to be a real consistent threat and top four and Champions League opposition. I think getting that back for the fullbacks and better quality centre backs, I think you'll see them go on and be very good.
Yeah, like we've all kind of spoken about Mings, and like he's dependable, but will he take you to the next level? That's a question to be answered in the future. They've got the Sassy in on loan, who in his first couple of games looked pretty well, but again, is he the one to kind of take you over the line? And it kind of seems that, to Isaac's point about addressing the more kind of skillful kind of players, that they seem to have done that by bringing in Rashford and Asensio. They've got Rodgers. Watkins is decent. Maybe he's kind of addressing things backwards. So rather than starting with the defence, he can say, right, let's get the forward line right, and then let's see in the summer if they make it to the Champions League, and it looks like they will do. What can we address in the middle of the park? So if you've got the workmen like Kamara, Onana, Tielemans, who's the flair person that can be in the middle, buzzing around. So if we just look at the league table, Newcastle are third, 59 points. Aston Villa seventh, 57 points. Do we think both these teams are going to make it? One of them might miss out.
You know what? We just don't know, right? Because there's so much that can happen before the end of the season with that race for the top four. And what's City on?
City are on 58, Chelsea 57, Forest 57, Villa 57. And like I say, there's 5 games left, so a lot can happen in those 5 games. If Nottingham Forest win tonight, they're playing Spurs tonight. They go back into third with a win. But yeah, it's all tight. It's all tight. But I think one of these two. I think Newcastle will definitely make it. I just have to see
I think
which.
Newcastle got a better upper chance. Just looking at their fixtures, I think they've got 3 home, 2 away. They've got a game against Arsenal, a game against Everton last day of the season. I think they'll probably be their 2 most tricky fixtures. I mean, they do still have to also play Chelsea and Brighton, but I
Yeah, it's
can't see
interesting.
them faltering. I'll be honest with
Yeah,
you. Whereas you compare that to Villa, Villa have still got the FA Cup match, and they've also still got to play City, which is next, and then Bournemouth and United. Now I know United are not in the greatest form, but they're still United, and on
yeah.
any day they can still put a spanner in the works,
The
especially
interesting
for
thing
Villa.
is
So
these teams fighting for top 5 have got to play the other teams fighting for top 5 at some point as well. So it'll
exactly,
just make those games a little bit more
6
interesting.
pointers,
So
right?
yeah, very much so. So yeah, well done, Aston Villa. They march on. Go to another team we just mentioned in the race for top 5. And that is, bear with me, it was Everton, Everton 0, Manchester City 2. Did any of you guys manage to catch this? Or do you want me to?
No. I just saw the highlights, but didn't get to sit down and watch the game at all on the weekend. So
Yeah,
I mean,
so
to
it
be
was
honest, for
just
me, it was
yeah,
it
go
was
on.
quite boring. The first half, there wasn't much of anything of note really. Um, City, I think Moyes set Everton up well to disrupt City and
Yeah,
kind of not allow them to be in the flow of things. Second half, I think just sheer ability overtook. I mean, again, the game wasn't great. Everton started, picking up yellow cards and getting a bit frustrated. The tactics started to change, and then City kind of just, you know, their natural ability, and I think obviously Pep's game plans just to overtook, and Everton just couldn't withstand the pressure for much longer. I mean, Nico O'Reilly's really starting to look like a prospect. Uh, what's this now? His fourth or fifth game
yeah,
in the league, and he's what, 2 goals now, or
yeah.
maybe three.
And an FA Cup
Um,
goal at some point.
exactly. So he looks the part, and it'd be
Yeah, no, he
interesting
does
to
look good.
see if off the back of this summer, because we know there will be activity. Obviously, a few players will be leaving, Kevin De Bruyne, etc., etc. Um, will he be included in the plans for next summer? Will they say, right, he can play centre mid, maybe we invest elsewhere because we've got Nico O'Reilly, or they keep him out on the left and they say, right, we're going to invest in the central midfield. It'd be interesting to see what happens off the back of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with this game as well, the introduction of Doku, like it's interesting where he can start a game and not look that great. Like we've all praised like the jinky majinky that he does, etc. And I think he's getting a bit of a label of an impact sub because he came on and then like he gave I think it's O'Brien the Everton right back a bit of a torrid time when he came on. Like they would just kind of get the ball out to him and I think he was just told to like run at him and just cause havoc.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
thing with that though, I take that with a pinch of salt, only because you're coming on with fresh legs. And your style is very like no defender wants to see a player like that coming on the pitch after like 60 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I'm tired, boss. Like, oh, he's coming on. Yeah, sub me off. Bring someone up. Bring fresh legs on to deal with that as well. That's it. I understand. The kind of the point where if he starts the game, he doesn't look as effective, and I think that's because, the defenders, number one, they're fresh, and number two, they've got the opportunity to warm into the game. So
yeah,
if I make it my point to lock you down as quickly as possible and make you as ineffective as possible early, you're more than likely going to get subbed off. Once you're off, all right, cool. Someone else is coming on with fresh legs, but as a defender, I'm thank Jesus. Do you know what I mean? Because now I've got a problem that I'm more in tune with, that I can deal with it in terms of like all this jinky stuff. But if you're, like I said earlier, if you're coming on fresh leg at 60 minutes, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Menge, Jaden Bogle, whoever, you're gonna give them a torrid time.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, goals by Nico O'Reilly and Kovacic gave Manchester City a 2-0 victory in this game. We've kind of briefly touched on the summer that they need. Just looking at Manchester City this season, and I mentioned it after the West Ham game. I think it was in maybe like September, October, and John was like, "Ah, "Nah, they're gonna run." And even though they won at Upton Park, I said that they looked pretty soft, and West Ham were always able to kind of have attacks, etc. And that's kind of continued over the season where they haven't been, where what's changed is that they haven't been able to find the goals at the other end, but they've still been quite weak defensively. Do you think it's a kind of a mass overhaul that's needed in the summer for this City team and squad?
I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of fixing that needs going on in this squad for me. Because like we're looking at De Bruyne is going. I don't think Grealish is going to be able to play himself back into the team. And then the other issue is inexperience. So even though O'Reilly is technically very good, McAtee is very good, it's about experience. How many of them can you blend in with the experience that you have? But then also we know that some of the new signings are going to kick on with experience and their ability. So Marmoush, he's going to be a lot more experienced. He's hit the ground running already. So I think he's going to be quite key. I think the biggest issue, I think they're going to need like 2 additional centre midfielders, and what that looks like and how they impact on the team is going to be key, right? They've got the experience in a lot of other areas, but there's a lot of change as well. Like Bernardo Silva's a lot older. Um, we don't know how what's his name's going to be back. Rodri's going to be when he gets back. Like, is he going to be able to hit the ground running straight away, or is the injury impact going to take a little while for him to get back into the rhythm of things? So there's a lot more questions about City the next season than I see them being around the top 4 because I think they've got the quality and experience in a lot of areas. Do I see them as title contenders for next season? And I would say no.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they'll be in the Champions League mix, but I think the overhaul is too much for them to kind of jump back to where they were. Like, that's no slight on Pep. We all know Pep's a genius. But yeah, I think that the squad needs a refresh in the summer, a season to bed in, and then maybe if Pep's still there the following season, then they might kick on. But yeah, it all depends on what they do in the transfer. And obviously, they got the World Club Cup in the summer, so that might kind of throw off any plans that they have because they're going to get a shorter break than most teams this summer, along with Chelsea. So that could have an impact into their plans and what they do. Um, does KDB go to that? I don't know. What's the rules?
His contract is up on the 1st of July, so
So mid
uh,
tournament, he's gonna he's
pretty
gonna bounce.
much.
Yeah, it'd be
Well, it's
interesting to
whether
see.
they have him on it because I'm pretty sure they can, they can offer him a rolling contract. But
A page to play type thing.
it depends on if he finds a new club by then. Will the
Yeah,
new
of
club
course.
say no? We want you because preseason is pretty
Yeah,
much
very true.
it will be live and kicking. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting, definitely.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
Everton
their
can't
last
be sorry.
group game is the 26th of June against Juventus. So yeah, I mean, 5 days later he's a free agent. What
Yeah,
happens?
let's see what happens. And yeah, Everton can't be too disheartened about this result. Like Adrian's boy Moyes, we know he's worked wonders since he's been back in the Premier League. They can't get relegated. They've done really well since he's come in. I think they might be like 3rd or 4th in the form guide since he's come in. I think it's just a rebuild for them going into next season. They've looked good, but I still think they will need to spend money in certain areas. I think Garner and Gay in the midfield they're dependable, but I think you want someone else with a bit more quality behind the core. His contract's up in the summer after he scored last week. He hinted that he wants a new contract. We don't know whether that's going to happen or not. And they started with Brozier up top. Calvert Lewin's meant to be leaving because his contract's out in the summer. You can't go into a season with just Beto because Brozier's on loan, isn't he? So, yeah, I think they'll need to look for a number 9, and I think they need at least 2 midfielders to fill in the gaps in midfield. But yeah,
I think
as I say,
they need at least 4 key signings. They need a centre back, two midfielders, and a striker. I agree with you. I think the core of their team basically needs uphauling,
yeah,
and with the new stadium, they'll be able to generate more revenue. So, do they take the hit now and then count the revenue incoming, future revenue incoming towards any PSR totals, or
yeah,
do they wait a season, maybe improve, get players that will see them through, and then go big next summer? It'd be interesting to see what they do.
I think they will take the hit now. I think just to make the stadium and the whole the move into the stadium worthwhile. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised they're going to have a few youngsters that are coming through already that are going to step up as well. So we'll see. But I don't think they're going to miss Calvert Lewin. They're not going to miss Brozier. So I think they're okay. I think, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, right?
yeah. And as far as I'm aware, David Moyes doesn't really shell out a lot. Like, obviously, he spent well, he brought Fellaini. That was a big signing when he was at Man United. But his time at West Ham and even Everton the first time round, he didn't really shell out. So maybe he's got his scouts doing what they do best, trying to get those shrewd signings. And then, yeah, another team in the race for top 5. Fulham 1, Chelsea 2. Iwobi opened the scoring after Reece James forgot he was on the football pitch and got robbed set by Sessegnon and set up Iwobi, who made it 1-0. Tyreek George popped up with his first Premier League goal. Really good finish from the edge of the box, actually. And then Pedro Neto, I must say, had a bit of stick this season for performances. I think a lot of people were expecting more from him this season, just kind of his form at Wolves, etc. But he won it in the 93rd minute with a really good turn and finish just inside the box. Chelsea really needed this. They've been kind of falling off a cliff since the start of the year. And this win keeps their Champions League push alive, moves them back up to 5th. What's gone wrong with Chelsea? Because I remember I said last week, is it because the manager kind of spoke that they were in the race and it might have affected the players, etc. But they just look a bit lackluster all over the pitch. What do you think it is?
I think it's an experience. I'll be real with you. I think it's an experience, and also the manager as well. I don't want to say it's the manager as if the players are not out there week in, week out putting in these performances, but there's constant change. I think the squad was too big from the get-go. The squad was constant tinkering. We don't have players that have the experience of playing sustained week in, week out football. And the players that are coming in are like Neto, are coming from and Nkunku and who else came in?
Sancho came in.
These are players that came from situations where, well, bar Sancho, they were week in, week out regulars. And now they're coming into a team where there's so many players, you don't know if you're going to play. Managers probably not kind of maybe nailed home what his philosophy or ideology is. He's just probably trying to get his feet under the table as well.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's too much inconsistency going on within the team. It would have been great if they'd have brought in someone like Thiago Silva, or like when he came in, he was of a certain age, but he was brought in to steady the ship. It would have been great if they'd have brought someone else in like that can lead on the pitch. I know they've had Reece James, who was meant to be the captain, but he spent half of his time injured. Not even half, like 3/4 of his time injured. He's only just coming back. There were players that they couldn't get rid of that are still hanging around the team. So yeah, it just looks a mess. I mean, they had some form, and then it's just falling off a cliff. It's much like how with Ange at Tottenham when he came in and they had form for 10 games and then injuries kicked in and inexperience and everything just fell off the cliff. And
they didn't know how to react, did they?
Yeah, that exactly that.
I think the biggest thing that Isaac highlighted was the constant tinkering, more so with the wide players. I think that's the biggest issue that I've noticed. That you're chopping Sancho, you're playing him for 60 minutes, then you're taking him off and playing Neto on, and then so no one can really find a form or patterns of play that will make the team, be really beneficial. So the constant chopping. If you look at Liverpool, Salah doesn't get changed. You understand what I'm saying? Salah, whatever form, and I know there's ups, but what I'm saying, they stick with Salah, Arsenal, Saka. And if Martinelli's there, then it's Saka and Martinelli. So what that allows is a bit of continuity, a bit of consistency, and everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Here, the fullbacks are adapting to different styles every other week. And we're going to say they train, but we don't, we know come the hour mark, we know Madueke's got legs, or the 80th minute, but he's getting taken off after the hour mark. You see what I'm saying? So then that opposition's like, I don't have to worry about someone running in behind me no more. And then Neto's got to take 20 minutes to warm up into the game. So I think the biggest issue is the constant changing of players in certain positions. Even though he tries to keep the midfield, he has kept the midfield pretty much the same, the central midfield, which is Caicedo, Enzo, and Palmer.
Wow.
But if you look at the back line, constant changing. If you look at the forward, and Nicholas Jackson, if you look at the forwards and the wide forwards, constant changing. So I'm not surprised that they found themselves in this position. Only so many times you can keep on coming on and scoring the winner or getting the assist as a winger. That's going to keep you in the game. Like you can only do that so many times. So yeah, hopefully he learns from it and hopefully they move forward. But a bit like what you said, Keith, we can't be surprised.
Yeah, and just going back to the experience thing that Isaac mentioned, like if you look at their first team squad, the oldest person is 27. So in their defence, you've got Tosin who's 27, but he's not a regular starter,
Experience. Yeah,
and
yeah,
his experience is coming from Fulham. So I mean, he's not going to be the one to lead your line. Your most experienced or your eldest forward is Nkunku, is 27. He came from Red Bull. Exactly hasn't lit up
Sorry to laugh. Have you
yeah,
seen that meme
lit
about
things
them?
up
Sorry to cut in.
about
Have you seen the meme about them complaining about players from Leipzig? So Chelsea,
yes,
any more players from that team? They don't want Sesko. They don't care. They don't want
yeah.
Sesko.
They want him. And then if
Flops.
you look at their midfield, the oldest person is Dewsbury Hall, who's 26, who doesn't
Can't even
start.
get in the team.
So you're looking at Caicedo's 23, Enzo's 24, Palmer's 22. So I think that what they're doing in theory is good, but what they haven't done is get the experienced heads to kind of nurture these youngsters
Bring
around
them
them.
up.
It's like
Yeah,
they just kind of just thrown them into the ocean without any life preservers and just like, oh, swim, kind of thing.
yeah.
So yeah, interested to see what happens with Chelsea's running. Fulham, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed. Like they played pretty well in this game. Chelsea did kick on, especially later on in the second half. But yeah, Fulham season, along with kind of Bournemouth and Brighton, maybe Brentford, have started to peter out a bit. Like they were kind of really good, kind of up until the new year, saying pushing for kind of those key European spots. But yeah, they just seem to have petered off slightly, and yeah, it's a shame because I think Marco Silva's done pretty well so far since coming back into the Premier League with Fulham. All right, so that's the race for top five. Let's talk about the. Oh, I was going to say race for the title, but it's not a race anymore, or is it? So let's talk about champions elect Liverpool. They went to Leicester City on Sunday afternoon, came away 1-0 winners with a 76-minute goal from Trent Alexander-Arnold, who I must say showed possibly the most emotion I've ever seen him in a Liverpool shirt, to be honest. So yeah, Isaac, what was your take on this game?
It was a game, to be honest. I'm not surprised at the way it went. Leicester, it was do or die for them. They lose, they get relegated. They win, they live to fight another day. So I was expecting them to give us a bit of an issue. That being said, we had chances. We took, we were on the front foot. So I think by the 40th minute, we'd had 10 chances, which, on another day, we're 3-4 nil up. But, the luck just kind of seemed to be with Leicester in the first half. It was good to see. I think my biggest gripe was it's number one, it's Leicester. Number two, we're 2 games away from the title. We're 5 games away from the end of the season. Well, 6 games before the start of the game. 6 games away from the start of the season. We've got players that need that you can give a start
Minutes.
to. Harvey Elliott, Ade Chiesa,
And
Endo. Like they're all sitting on the bench without a start. Give them a chance. That's my biggest gripe. That was my biggest gripe. It would have been nice to see those players start. And Harvey Elliott comes on, and more often than not, he has an impact on the game.
Yeah, very impactful.
Even though for at one point of the season he was known as the closer. All right, so give these guys an opportunity. Outside of that, I thought the 1-0 result, I'm not mad at. I'm not mad at. We had opportunities, fine. We didn't take them. The 1-0 result, I'm not mad at. Do you know what's funny though? I was sitting there, right, and I saw Trent getting ready to come on. And I was sitting there thinking, if Trent scores, how would the fans react? Now that was a question I was asking myself. If I was a fan and if I was of this weird mindset that he's a snake and because he's leaving XYZ, if he scores, do I celebrate? And I was sitting there asking myself that, and then I thought, let me slap a bet on it. Let me see what the odds are for him to score. And then he goes and scores, and then it's like the fans went crazy. So it's like,
Yeah,
what's
it's
going
normal.
on? Like, what's
What
really
did you
going
make
on?
of his celebration? Because there's been some like
The
no one
celebration,
knows
I'm
what's
not.
going through his head. Like some people are like, oh, he's done that because
He
it's
done that because
he's showing that because he's showing
do
his
you know what?
pride for Liverpool, etc.
Nah,
Like got us
nah.
over the
For me,
line.
and people might call me mad or they say I'm chatting nonsense. But if you know people, if there's people out there that are talking down on your name on the internet, which is usually where it always is, putting out these videos, putting out these statements, these tweets, these comments, on the radio as well. Rory Jennings on the radio. But then where it matters, you score and the fans are backing you. God, no one can tell me anything. I'm
Yeah,
celebrating in front of these lot, and no one can tell me anything. You lot are talking, but where it matters, they're backing
yeah.
me in it.
The
So
adulation's there in it.
there you go. So I
What's
think that's
your
what I
take,
think
Adrian?
that's what that was. He was just soaking up the. It was one of those things. It was almost like the Real Ronaldo chill. This is my house. Do you know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
where it matters. So I was happy to see it. I was happy that they celebrated. And he took his shirt off and done all of that. If he'd have kissed the badge, I think I'd have been a bit. All right, slow down, mate.
Yeah.
Slow down, mate. But
What's your take, Adrian?
yeah, good to see.
I think I think Leicester was so bad. You lot didn't need to come out of second gear. You might have not even come out first, really and truly.
No, I want to give him a bit of credit.
I don't
I
think
want to
they were
give it.
that
They
bad.
were, yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they were that bad. I think they were trying, but they weren't that
yeah,
bad.
and they hit the post.
When I mean bad, I don't mean in terms of how they played. I mean in terms of the quality is not the levels, right? So for me, I didn't feel like you lot even stepped out of second gear. You might and might have just stayed in first. To be fair, um, but Leicester hasn't scored in what, nine? I think it's 8 or 9 games now they haven't scored. Leicester.
Nine games
It
now,
was
but it was
8 games.
eight
Nine
Yeah,
games now.
games now. So the goal threat's not there. There's a lot of work to be done on that team, and I think you lot didn't have to take that approach. The only other thing, touching on what Isaac was saying about why is he not giving the other players the chance to play and etc. Because my understanding, they don't have to, before there had to be a minimum of 10 appearances to get a medal. I think they've removed that, right?
yeah. So the club decides who gets a medal now.
Yeah. So in the past, it would have been, remember that was like, oh, he's on 7 appearances,
Yeah,
he needs to
you
get
got to
the
get on.
10. So but the manager would be like, all right, I'm going to play Chiesa because he needs to get his appearances up, or I'm going to play Harvey Elliott. And it's a
But
bit of a
that's not
shame.
even where my point comes from. It would just be nice to see them.
But this is what I'm saying. And this is what I'm saying is, I know that's not where your point's coming from, but what I'm saying, he doesn't have to do that no more. You understand? Where before in the past, managers, I remember like Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, they were like, oh, and Jose Mourinho, they're paying certain players so they can get their appearances in to get the trophies. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There is something that you've mentioned about slot rotating, and I'm not understanding why. Like, you're not in the Champions League. You're not rotate, play those guys. Like what Isaac said the week before. Let's see
No,
what
but
they.
the reason why he doesn't do it because he got asked in the media and he said that he's always a manager that said, right, my first 11 is my main 11, and I don't like to deviate from that. So I've
100%.
let players know,
This is what it's going
and
to be.
this is how I operate. My first 11 is my main 11. Everyone else, you're on the bench. You will have an opportunity to work your way in, but if that's my strongest 11, then that will be the 11 you will see most of the season. They were
Yeah,
asking because there was that stat where they said that he'd used the same team 5 times in a row that Klopp hadn't done in years. I think there was
yeah.
like
I think his
three or
whole
four
tenure.
years since, yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
So, but
So
then it's like alluded to what you were saying the week before, where you're saying, let's see what these guys can do without Salah in the team, just based on it. Like Salah not being in the team is going to be due to injury. So actually, he's not injured, but let's just see what the front line looks like without him for an hour,
Yeah,
for 80 minutes. And like you said, you're 10 points ahead or whatever it may be now. Just First up, yeah. So there's nothing to lose, right? You're not going to lose anything. So it's a bit disappointing. And what does that do to the players? Like you said, it's about them playing their way into the team, but actually, what does it do for their confidence? Actually, you're giving me a fair crack. So then, do I get on the phone to my agent and say, you know what? Can you start looking around? Not all of the players, just one or two players might be asking, actually, can you get on the phone and see who might be interested in me? But we don't know. He might be creating a culture and they're all invested in it and they're going to stick with it. But it'd be nice, like you said, to see Harvey Elliott playing a little bit more, maybe in his favourite position as the 10 or something like that, and see how it goes. But yeah, that's it.
yeah. So yeah, a good win for Liverpool. Like I say, bit of a hairy moment in the game, but they had the quality to see it out. And obviously with that victory for Liverpool, that doomed Leicester back to the Championship at the first time of asking. We've spoken about them and their lack of kind of quality and Rude's lack of maybe experience, which has kind of got them in their position in this position. Also, the board not being savvy enough to go out and look for a good manager with real experience to help them in their fight to stay up. Do you think Rude will be kept on, or do you think they'll get to the end of the season and just part ways?
I'm rude. I'm parting ways.
Yeah, I was saying, yeah, that's a lot of work. That is a
If
lot of
I'm rude,
work.
I'm parting ways. I'm sorry. Get me out of here. Let me look. It didn't work. I shouldn't have took the job. Fine, but let's everyone just cut their losses now. Go our separate ways. I would not. I would. What? Listen. I would not want my name attached to that Titanic. No way. No way.
Yeah, well, yeah. Bye bye, Leicester. And then let's just move on to uh, sorry, mind gone blank. Ipswich nil, Arsenal 4 took place on Sunday. I was a little bit surprised at how strong Arteta went with his starting lineup for this game, considering
Same.
you had such a grueling game midweek against Real Madrid. Ipswich would need to basically every player would have to be 10-10 for them to get a win over Arsenal, to be fair. What's your take on the lineup, Adrian?
You know what? I wasn't surprised by the lineup, and the reason being, one, technically we haven't secured second spot, right? So depending on results, obviously it went in our favour when Villa beat Newcastle, but Newcastle's flirting to put a bit of pressure on us, and
Not a
same
Forest.
with Forest. So I think he's thinking about, but also getting certain guys to play themselves and keep them a bit sharp. So like Saka, even though he's done really well, remember he's still not match sharp. So he's like, all right, let's go
Yep.
with that. Ben White, because of I think if Party, he still may have started, but because of Party now, he had to experiment a little bit as well to see how I may set up against PSG. So I think there's a bit of that. But yeah, I think we're really high on confidence at the moment. And we're just kind of benefiting from that game against Real Madrid. And I think we're going to have a good finish, a strong finish to the season, and that's it. So some nice football at times, and I think MLS, what I was speaking about going into the middle, saw what that may look like in for the future for next season, and that
Yep.
might actually kind of dictate what we're going to do in the summer because adding to that, there's rumours that Zubimendi might be going Real Madrid now and etc. Not that I want Zubimendi, but that's going to be interesting what that looks like. So I think we've got options, and it's looking at we might have to play Ben White right back and
Isn't that where
Timber.
you played him?
Huh?
Isn't that where you playing
Yeah,
naturally anyway?
PSG, Timber left back and then play and maybe move MLS into the middle to cover Party. We don't know, but it's just looking at what that may be as an option for that game against PSG.
Oh, because Party's suspended for the
It's
first leg,
suspended,
isn't
yeah.
he? Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, just getting back to this game. we'll come to the future of the Champions League in a sec. So yeah, back to this game. Trossard put Arsenal 1-0 up, and then Leif Davis was sent off quite a nasty tackle on Saka. I don't think he intentionally went out to injure Saka, but caught him really badly. You think
You know
he
what's
done
really
it on purpose?
disappointing?
That was intentional. I'm
You think
sorry.
so? I just think
Yeah,
Saka was too
100%.
quick for him.
100%.
There was no way of getting that ball.
100%.
And the angle,
Exactly. Well,
it's not
the angle of like Ben said, the ball. To get the ball, he has to go either through Saka or around him. His foot's gone in, studs up like that. That was intentional.
Yeah, I saw that, but I just think Saka's feet were so quick. By the time he'd gone in for the tackle, Saka's done what he's had to do, and he's like, oh, kind of thing. But yeah, it was a deserved red card anyway. So
100%. That was nasty.
the fans was disappointing. The fans,
booing Saka after, and then booing Saka for the rest of the game. Yeah, that was crazy.
People are just weird, man. That tribalism is just insane, bro.
It's mad.
Absolutely
and
insane.
Then Gabriel popped up to make it 2-0. Trossard got his second of the game, 3-0, and Wanyeri wrapped it up to make it 4-0 to Arsenal. While we're talking about Arsenal, let's just touch on the Real Madrid game and looking forward to PSG. So, as you should be aware, Arsenal went out to Madrid midweek and beat Real Madrid 2-1 away from home to secure their second Champions League semi-final in 20 years. Adrian, how proud of you of the boys were you?
No, really, really, really proud. We're like really happy, ecstatic about it. It's good. For me, I can't hype the night yet unless we win the CL. You understand? So certain Arsenal fans are like, "Oh, it's the best night ever."
So you're being reasonable and not getting ahead of yourself.
They're like, it's the best night ever. But if we win, it is the best night. It's going to go down as the best night.
No, winning the Champions League won't be the best night.
No, but what I'm saying is going to go down as one of the best night, adding to it.
It can be the best night now, and then you win the Champions League, and that becomes the best.
I'm not doing that. I don't do that personally. I don't do that. No, we're not doing that. I don't do. Oh, it's the best night ever. Da, da, da. It was a great night, but I'm holding horses, and I wanted to see if we win it that night, and in the CL final, best night ever. In Arsenal history. But yeah, we were very good. Tactically set up perfectly. The energy of the players, the aggression in the play, and yeah, we just dominated that game, and it was really good. It was really pleased to see that actually what's been a very difficult season that the players have been able to put on that performance. And what I mean by that, with the amount of injuries we've had, and how we've had to balance that and work around that, and we've done really well with that. And that's what I've enjoyed actually. That the players that had to step in and step up, they have done that. I think for me, the real heroes of that game were the fullbacks and Declan and Partey.
I love how injuries are a thing now when it's Arsenal.
Hold on.
I saw you shaking your head.
No, but you know what it is?
I love it. I love it. Like when Van Dijk got injured for the season, or when Liverpool were down to bare bones, Arsenal fans, you and a few others in particular, were rubbishing the fact that we had injuries.
No. See,
when we challenged, hold on. When we almost went to 4 finals and were challenging, 3 finals and challenging for the league, and then the very next season when our players were tired and we didn't invest. Oh, you can't use that.
I'm not using that.
Listen.
Managed it well. We stayed second.
I'll be rude. I don't want to hear nothing about injuries from Arsenal fans.
I
don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it because when we was talking about it, it was, you can't use that. It's an excuse. Now that you lot are going through it, you're trying to use that. You're going to try and use that and the distraction of the Champions League to detract from the fact that you're finishing second for another season. 3 seasons in a row, you finish second.
I said that.
I know that, but I'm saying that.
never said that. I've never said that. So you're jumping, and I've never said
You
that. All I
literally
said,
just, you literally
no,
just,
no, no,
you
you're
referenced
jumping.
the
Let's
injuries.
bring it back. Let's bring it back. All right.
You
So
referenced the injuries.
you're through
I've
now.
said,
You're through now.
you're
You're
free.
through now.
And all I said,
PSG in the next round. What's your? So you just alluded to kind of how you would potentially line up in that game against PSG. Obviously, you're at home first, and then you've got to go away for the second leg. So you think it could be Ben White right back, Timber left back, with MLS replacing Partey in the middle of the park?
yeah, I wouldn't want to see Jorginho in there. I'll be honest. I wouldn't want to see. I think the way PSG's midfield move, I think that's too much movement for Jorginho.
Okay.
And I think he'll struggle with the transition of how they move and interchange with each other. And he's not an athlete in that sense. So I think it'd be too fast for him, and I think the game will go past him too quickly. So I think MLS would have to start. I know they looked at Marino dropping that back as an 8 and then pushing Trossard as the. But I think Trossard struggles when he plays centre forward in some
Yeah.
games, and I think that game he would struggle. So I would hope to see MLS as the 6, Timber as the left back, who's been the best fullback this season, by the way, and Ben White.
Do you think MLS will be able to cope with Menj and let's say it's who will be getting down? Not Menj, Hakimi. Sorry, because it will be the right side. Hakimi and Dembele.
What if MLS was playing left back? Yeah, I don't think. I'm not saying there's not going to be hairy moments, but definitely he's done it. He's done it all this season against everyone he's faced.
No,
Yeah,
but
he's
I'm
pretty
talking about
fearless, isn't he?
PSG. I'm not talking about. But he's never had to. He's never been doubled up. Let's be honest. He's not been doubled up like that. I think the only time he got doubled up and they had to drag him at halftime was what PSV? Was it PSV that you played?
He got a card. He got a card
Yeah,
Yeah,
he got
early.
booked. Yeah,
exactly.
he
But
got yeah, he
because
got booked.
he got doubled up. He got doubled up and he got a card early. Pardon? Ex- Okay, but the fact that that challenge came from the fact that they tried to overload his side because he was under a bit of pressure at first, and then they
Nah,
had to drag him. So
no,
now I'm asking,
don't get it's not. It
considering
wasn't under pressure because he managed it until he got taken off. For me, Martinelli's key in that, right? We know Martinelli gets up and down, so we know that's going to be a very defensive game for Martinelli, and we may not get the joy out of him attacking wise offensively because of how far up Hakimi pushes. However, I think if MLS is left back, he can handle that. But like I said, I would prefer to see MLS as the 6 and Timber the left back that game
so
with Martin.
you would want to see Timber against Hakimi and Dembele, and Ben White against Doué or Barcola and Nuno Mendes.
It's got to be like that. That's whoever you face, you've got to do that. We've beaten them once already. Like I said, they've got more confidence. They understand the system that Enrique's implemented now. But we've done our bit. We've done our job in the Champions League. The league table doesn't lie. The defense record doesn't lie. It speaks for itself. So
What league table?
The first part of the Champions League, the league
That
table.
don't matter. That don't mean a thing because if
Hold
that
on.
meant a thing, Liverpool it would be Liverpool versus Arsenal.
Yeah, you say it, but what I'm saying, it doesn't lie, innit? We've got this far. So I understand what you're saying, but we've gotten this far. Our defense record in the tournament has shown that we can cope. And
That
that's what.
league is irrelevant. It's irrelevant to
How
this
can it be
point.
relevant if we've got to the semis?
The form in that league part is irrelevant because it doesn't carry. That form does not always carry over,
But it's carried for
as we've
us.
seen.
It's carried for us. So you can't say it's irrelevant when it's carried over for us. Come
All
on,
right,
man.
we'll see. All right, we'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see.
you've done well. All right, so a lot of people wrote you off against Real Madrid. What's your confidence levels like going into the PSG game?
My confidence is high because I think defensively we're going to get, because of PSG's defense, we're going to get opportunities. But on the other side of it, I know now they can hurt us in terms of how they press. They're very good at their pressing. They press really high, really aggressively, and we can be hurt by that. I think if Gabriel was fit, I'll be extremely confident. But I'm confident.
Okay, that's fair. And you're playing on Wednesday, I believe, which means you don't have a game at the weekend. Would you have preferred to have had a game at the weekend than going to the PSG game, or having those 6-day break? Do you think that will benefit you?
No, the 6 days break will definitely benefit us. I prefer that. It allows us to work on stuff, you know, and implement a tactic for that game to manage their high press, Hakimi, Mendes, what that looks like. It allows us to work on that strategy for that game.
The time on the training pitch
Yeah,
will be good. So yeah, as we just mentioned, Arsenal play Crystal Palace on Wednesday. If Crystal Palace manage to win that game, that will hand the league title to Liverpool on Wednesday without them kicking a ball. If it's a draw or an Arsenal win, then it rolls over to Sunday, and the destiny will be in Liverpool's hands. And I think after Liverpool's last league title win, I think a lot of fans would like Liverpool to win it on the pitch at Anfield. So, yeah, let's see what happens on Wednesday. Round up the rest of the games that happened this weekend. Manchester United 0, Wolves 1. Pablo Sarabia with a quality free kick. No one surprised by this, I'm guessing.
I feel like Hoyland just doesn't want to score. I'll be real with you.
Doesn't want to score or can't score.
No, stop it. It's starting to look like he
So
doesn't want to. Jesus.
no, but to be fair, well, Wolves have been putting in good performances since they've appointed this manager, right? And United are still not grasping this system. The United players are not grasping the system. But it was a free kick, and like Isaac said, United had a lot of chances. Hurley didn't want to score, but
yeah,
it's
it is
just the
what
way
it
the
is.
cookie crumbles, right?
Yeah. So Man United would have been on a high after going into the game following Thursday's dramatic win against Lyon, where they won 5-4 on the night. But you mentioned that Pierre Pereira's just come in. He came in after Amorim, and he's picked up 16 more points than Amorim since he's been here and beaten Amorim twice. And essentially, they play the same system. I know O'Neill's system wasn't too dissimilar to what Pereira's doing now, but there's no way that the gulf between the two teams should be as big as what they are. Like, since Amorim's come in, the only two teams he's beaten at home in the league are Southampton and Ipswich, which is really, really bad.
That is bad.
Really, really bad. And I think Thursday gave him a little bit of extra stay-in time, just because they're into the semi-final now. They could win the Europa League, get into the Champions League. But the league performances have been so bad, I wouldn't be surprised if there were standing out new managers for him. Or am I just being a bit too dramatic
I
with
think you're
this?
being dramatic for me. I think from the interview with what's the group now? Is it Ineos?
Ineos.
With Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he's made it clear that it's about putting infrastructure in place that's going to allow them to be successful. I don't think they're rushing to move him on, and I think they're just being brutally honest about where the squad is, in terms of the ability, the football IQ of the players, and they know a lot of them don't fit that formation, but they're playing that formation moving forward, right? So I think they're not going to sack him. I think he's going to be there. Um, and he's going to get some of the players that he wants next summer.
So throwing it back, so Liverpool had some dark times under like Roy Hodgson, um, and
Kenny Dalglish.
even before Roy Hodgson came in, like Rafa Benitez came in. I know Benitez won the Champions League, got a couple seconds, but Man United are so far off even doing that. How much time do you realistically see them getting? And bear in mind, you look at the quality of the league overall, bar the big 4, 5, 6 teams, the quality of the league has moved on so much. Man United will kind of potentially struggle to keep up with those teams. So it's how much time and what's the marker do you give him? Because you can't look at this Manchester United team or squad and say they're going to be challenging for Champions League spots in the next 2 seasons.
You never
What's
know that,
what?
though. I mean, a team can turn it around in the space of one summer. I mean, we saw Leicester go from fighting relegation, to winning the Premier League the very next season. So, I know that's not realistic. If we're looking at the Man United squad, I know it's not realistic, but it's not impossible. That being said, I think United, this current United squad, personally, I think it's going to take at least 3 to 4 windows.
Then adding on top of what Isaac was saying in the first part was
No, let me correct that. 3 to 4 years. 3 to 4 years, not windows, because windows could be 2 seasons.
Windows is
4
2
windows could
seasons,
be
yeah.
2 seasons.
I
I
think you
think
can
it's
be.
going to take. I think it's going to take 3 to 4 seasons before they're back challenging regularly for the top four.
You say that, but then look at Nottingham Forest. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that that's sustainable. What Nottingham Forest is going to be sustainable next season. But look at Nottingham Forest, where they just beat relegation, and now they're battling for a CL position, and that's 2 signings, 3 signings, and a little bit of tactical implementation. Now, I'm not saying United is going to do that, but United has every chance of being able to battle for top four, and may just miss out on it next season once Amarin gets his signings, a full pre-season with them, etc., etc. You understand what I'm saying? So I think they're gonna sit tight and look at this future, and look at all the meetings, all the targets that they're going for in the summer, etc.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like you mentioned Nottingham Forest, but Nuno came in back end of last season and changed their playing style a little bit, innit? So you can say so it wasn't like the same Nottingham Forest that started the season that is playing now. It's not like Steve Cooper's Nottingham Forest.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I say, with Amarim, how many games out of like he's had like 20 plus games now comfortably. I would say the Arsenal FA Cup game, the first Man City game, and then Liverpool at Anfield. They're only the real games where you can look at that Man United team and be like, oh yeah, there's something about them kind of thing. Outside of that, they haven't shown any kind of real grit and determination. And if it wasn't for Bruno doing his magic every now and again, they'd be even worse. Like they're very lucky that the bottom three teams are as bad as what they are, and West Ham. So yeah, I if they if they finish higher than seventh next season under this current regime, I'd be surprised. Just just throwing it out there. So yeah, no real surprises that Man United lost to Wolves there. Brentford 4, Brighton and Hove Albion 2. And Buemo got me some decent fantasy league points. But yeah, he popped up with 2 goals. Johan Wissa and Norgard for Brentford, with Welbeck and Mitoma scoring for Brighton after João Pedro was sent off for a stupid elbow. Yeah, can't really say I'm too surprised about this result. I think Brentford would have gone into this game expecting to win, considering Brighton's up and down form. I know Brentford had home form has taken a nosedive since the start of the season, but yeah, they were pretty rampant. And I can't remember who it was that passed it to Mbuemo for his first goal. No, yeah, his first goal. I think it was Lewis Potter, really good pass. And Mbuemo, out of him and Wissa, I think he's the more deadly one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. He comes from he plays in a position where he's got more effect on the game because he's a scoring winger and he can
Yeah,
also assist, right? Whereas Wissa's the man on the end of it all. So I'm not mad at that. I'd probably agree. He is probably the more effective player out of the two.
yeah. What about you, Bid?
I think he's just got a little bit more to his game than Wissa in terms of I think he can carry the ball a lot better, a lot stronger. And in tight spaces where he might have a lot more guys around him, I think he's got a little bit more in his locker to get out of that situation than what Wissa has. But you can't complain about it. You'll be happy to have both of them in your team, right? Because like you said, they're both on their day. They can win the game by themselves or win the game between. I think I saw another stat. They got 34 league goals between them, and I think only Mane and Salah
Yeah, I saw that stat. Yeah,
has got 39. So they could equal it, but that's how much of a combo those two are. That they're setting each other up, they're scoring goals. So they're a problem, and I think without them two, obviously Brentford would be a lot lower in the league table. Them two have just been really incredible for them.
Yeah, and their
And if
form
you look
goes
at it,
to
it's the whole. If we look at it, it's the whole. The talisman leaves and someone else has to step up. Unfortunately for Brentford, they had Wissa and Waymo. So yeah, no, I
yeah.
think
That's the exact same point I was gonna make. It's like Ivan Tony who, and there was all this
literally.
clamour around him. Like when he came back from his ban, like he scored on his return, and everyone's like,
And
"Oh,
then that's
Ivan
it. Yeah.
Tony," etc. Then he dropped off a bit, and then there was all about, "Oh, what's going to happen in the summer? What are Brentford going to do?" And they just kind of held out in it. They were like, "Well, we don't need to sell him. Like, if someone comes and gives us an offer that we find acceptable, we'll do it." He's gone. He's getting his money, scoring goals in Saudi, I believe, and Brentford are just just cracking on, and there's no real miss there, is there? So, um, Brighton, Hertzler, he hasn't done too bad for his first season. Like they're 10th in the league. Like he's 32 years old, first season in the Premier League. You should get a top 10 finish.
Mhm.
I think they'll be a bit upset with the kind of the peaks and troughs that he's had with the form. But I think for a first season, I don't think anyone can be too harsh on him. What do you think, Adrian?
Yeah, I agree. I echo what you're saying. I think you got to look at where they are, what they're trying to achieve, and some of the signings that they've brought in this season. Some of them have not hit the ground running, but they're getting used to it. And I think he's going to go on. I think with a few more signings, he might be able to push for a European spot. But I think you got to remember remember Danny Welbeck was leading the line for them for the first quarter, maybe just under that. And João Pedro had a couple injuries, so I think and that's the problem without a consistent and prolific striker, you're gonna have the moments where you're gonna struggle in games compared to your teams around you, where they've got a good striker that's scoring vital goals for them, right? So I think next season they should kick on. But they've got a lot of promising players in there, and Matoma looks like he's recapturing some of the old form that had a lot of people looking at him as well.
Yeah. And if you look at Belaber's had a fairly decent season. So Minter, I think Welbeck, as good as what he is and how well he's doing, kind of father time in it. So I think and João Pedro, his injury record hasn't been great as well. So I think they might need to get a number 9 in to steady the ship. And I think Dunk might need replacing. Like he's been pretty consistent over the years, but I think you need a centre back with just a little bit more guile about them. But yeah, I don't think they can be too disheartened about how their season has gone. Just a couple more games to round up. West Ham won, Southampton won. Like I said with Man United, Graham Potter, he'll be happy that the bottom 3 teams are as bad as what they are, because haven't really seen much to say he's going to do anything next season. Like he's come in, only won a few games. We all saw what Fulkrug said at the end of the match. Really wasn't happy about the performance of the players and the style of play. Like I think there was a little bit of a slight on the manager there, where he said after we scored, we just sat back and sunk into ourselves. And obviously that doesn't just come from the player on the pitch. I'm sure it might have been an instruction. And because they sat back after going 1-0 up through a very good Bowen goal, they allowed Southampton to equalise in the last minute, with Ugachukwu scoring a really good finish. Um, so yeah, we know Southampton are gone, but what do West Ham need to do for next season, Isaac? I think
I'll be honest with you. I think this is a wider conversation, and I think this also relates to Leicester as well. Maybe not so much Ipswich. I think they overperformed in the Championship, and maybe Premiership was just too far of a step for them, and they'll probably end up like Luton next season. That's my view. Maybe I'm wrong. Uh, but for the teams like Southampton and Leicester, they need heavy investment. Now, the thing is, do they have enough revenue to do that? The parachute payments might allow them to hold on to their players, but I think they will need to sell. So, like Taylor Harwood-Bellis or Kyle Walker-Peters, they would be good players to get rid of right now, because you might be able to pull in a decent transfer fee for them and then use that to reinvest.
Yeah.
And then obviously the parachute payments as well, take that, reinvest, and then, find a decent manager and mount a challenge to come back. But I think with the money that the other teams are receiving from TV revenues in the Premier League, as you've said, Keith, many times before, the overall level of the Premier League is doing this. Whereas the gap between the Premier League and the Championship is just doing this, right? So how do teams at Southampton, Leicester or Leeds and Burnley that are probably going to come back up, how do they bridge that gap on the kind of revenue that they're on without, breaking financial rules or overcharging fans for tickets? Like, how do they do that? And I don't know how they do it unless they sell key players. But then you don't want to sell those players because they're the players that have got you to the Premiership, or they're the players that are going to help you sustain at the first, a challenge or a bid to survive. So yeah, I say all that to say I think Southampton needs to sell key players and reinvest heavily within the squad, and then go again next season.
What about West Ham for you, Adrian? Are you just like, what does Potter need?
I think Potter's got a good foundation. You might just need a summer with them to get them up to level. But the problem is the level that he's going to get them to acceptable to the West Ham fans? So what I mean by that is we admire the job that he done at Brighton, but now that Brighton's had 2-3 other managers, we could see that there was a higher level. And then when he stepped up to Chelsea, he couldn't meet their expectations. So is it a stabilizing job of him being in, or can he actually get them into Europe consistently and be a real difficult team to play against, and all the top teams hate playing against them? And the answer to that is, I don't know. They look a little bit better, but do they look? They look better than what they were under the manager, but do they look to the level of where you're going to think, next season they're going to be a real problem? And I can't give you that answer.
It's very true.
That's the hardest thing about it. They've got a lot of good players. They've got a good foundation to build upon. That they could be a real nuisance impose themselves with the top 5, be there and thereabouts, but also be a good cup team. I just don't know what Graham Potter's going to bring to them.
Yeah, and it kind of bitten the West Ham fans a little bit in it, because they wanted to get rid of David Moyes because he wasn't playing whatever brand of football they wanted. They got Lopetegui in, didn't work out there. They've got Graham Potter in, not really seeing much of a style of play there. Even when teams can be losing, but you can say, all right, this team is doing X, Y, Z to get them in the right direction. It's like they've got to be self-aware that, are they a club that can attract the kind of manager that wants that plays the football that they want with the players that they got? Yeah, I think they're just a little bit too self-righteous at times, but it is what it is. And then, finally, just move on to Crystal Palace 0, Bournemouth 0. Not much happened in this game. Richards was sent off in injury time of the first half. Bournemouth were knocking on the door in the second half. Didn't manage to get over the line. They had kind of 70% possession in this. But yeah, Crystal Palace held out. Another good result for my fantasy league as well. So yeah, if we just have a quick recap of the league table. So yeah, Liverpool top with 79 points, could seal the league next week Sunday at home to Tottenham. Arsenal 7 points ahead of Newcastle in second. Like we said, Newcastle, Manchester City, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, who play Tottenham tonight, and Aston Villa all vying for that Champions League spot. And Ipswich, I think they could get relegated next weekend if results don't go their way, but it's very unlikely that they will catch West Ham. So yeah, boys, thank you very much. Thank you very much to those who like, subscribe, comment, listen, share. Please continue doing all of that good stuff for us, and we will be back next week for another episode. Peace.